that for me, as I imagine it was for Peter, James, and John when they saw Jesus. It's actually the story of how I came to believe in God and decide that I want to start following Jesus. So, at 10 years old, I had been going to church all my life, but I just didn't believe that God/Jesus was real. I hadn't seen him, I hadn't heard him. It just didn't make sense that he would be. My mom said she remembers me saying that I wanted to believe, but I just couldn't. At the time, I was feeling really guilty about various things I had done, and it was so bad that I was starting to have panic attacks when I would think about it. And this was during COVID. And at the time, we were staying at my grandparents' place. And one night, I was feeling a lot of shame. As I was going to bed, I'm laying there, I'm reflecting, and I'm just feeling overwhelmingly guilty. And and without me intending, a prayer came out of my mouth. And I had never done this on my own before. And I asked God, can I still get into heaven? And then this one song came into my mind, Over the Rainbow, and I started to sing it. And so I sang it and eventually stopped. But as soon as I stopped, I heard that same song playing somewhere, and I was like, did I really just hear that? And so I got up and I went downstairs, and it turned out my grandfather, who was scrolling on his computer right after I had sung Over the Rainbow, he scrolled past someone singing that same song on his computer, and I had heard it from upstairs, right after I had just done it. And to me, that felt like God answering my prayer. And I don't know, this may not seem super divine or even believable, but I am 110% sure God answered me that night in my most humble and vulnerable moment. And it changed me. But I'm sharing this with you guys because God can show himself to us like he did to the first century disciples. But through my own experience, I know he can show himself to us 21st century disciples in other ways. But these can be just as transformative.
Hard to follow that one up. Uh, for a long time, I thought, sorry, is it good? Is it good? Okay. Uh, sorry. For a long time, I thought in absolutes, and I never really thought that I ever met God. And that question has plagued me for a very long time, basically since I was able to listen to scripture. Um, and even now, I don't think I've ever truly found God in the sense that I've never talked to him. I My definition of a conversation is kind of strict and concrete in that I don't really take hints. Sure, you can send prayers, but he never really says anything back to you. Not anything like, "Hey, Yule, I have this PS5 that I want to airdrop you from heaven." And yeah, and so God will usually send gifts indirectly. Instead of airdropping a PS5, maybe he'll give you a PS5 for Christmas. Thanks, Mom. I don't think she's here. And like, it's hard for me to take those hints and find them and put them together. But I think throughout all my life, there have been a lot of circumstances that have wound up in my favor that I just got to be like, that was probably divine intervention. During the fire, I our family's house was right at the edge, our old house, right before we moved. It was right at the edge of the fire, and it was very close to getting burned down. But we moved like a couple months ago and away from the fire, and I feel like all the circumstances had lined up for us to make our move, and I don't know, I feel like that was something that I just can't really ignore and brush under the rug. um so going back to absolutes, either I've never met God and probably never will, because that's my rigid interpretation of a conversation, or I've been speaking to him my whole life, or more aptly, he's been speaking to me. I don't really, uh, I kind of mouth words at the dinner table. I know this isn't really a super in-depth or definitive response. I don't think it's in my position to give a definitive response. But you could give your response. That was a good segue, right? Good segue.
Oh, we turn the tables in the adults. So while we're doing this, our very talented Thomas is going to be setting up, and he is going to be playing some beautiful instrumentals while we think and talk to each other. To give you a little context, if you remember the Mr. Rogers shtick that I did earlier. So if you're around my age, of course, I was doing Mr. Rogers. And if you're around my son's age, you thought that I was doing Daniel Tiger. And maybe if you're a grandparent, you're like, both of you are wrong. What he was doing was an Eddie Murphy skit from Saturday Night Live in their best season. So I mention that because we can all see the same thing or be speaking about what we think is the same thing, but have different perspectives on it. So what I want you guys to do, so we'll get in one big group on this side and in the middle and on the left side. And we're going to talk about meeting God. Maybe you can talk about your experience or non-experience, or you could even question what that even means. When my dad was young, for him to join his church as a child, the prerequisite was to have some type of spiritual dream. This was not to be recognized as a prophet, nor to be called into ministry. This was just to join the church. And my dad was raised Methodist, so I don't know like why they were so intense about it. Now, of course, my experience is very different. I've never had a vision. I've never had a dream like that. But I believe in just being a 21st century disciple. I meet with God. Your answer may be totally different or a non-answer. So we're going to take about 5 to 10 minutes, and Thomas is going to play behind us whenever we set up. And we're going to talk about that. We're talking about meeting God. Everybody ready? I'm going to set my timer.